where do we, and I'm going to use the word we because all of society, I think, benefits from respite houses. Where do we go from here? I mean, it's great what you're doing, but I heard 3 beds here, 1 bed here, 3 beds here, and these are big populations, and a lot of people aren't having access to respite houses, and are still getting, carted off to ERs and forcibly treated, and having trouble even breathing fresh air and that sort of thing. So, how do we take these little seeds of difference and change? What's your vision for making this more available?
My vision would be every community having a respite, and whether that could be a converted church building or parsonage, or some sort of collective space that is not necessarily tied to state funds or grant funds, but just a community good of, just like we think that it's important to have a fire department.
That's a good analogy.
we think it's important to fund a community respite center so that when members of our community are struggling and need a break, we can provide that for them in whatever way makes sense for the unique needs of our particular community.
Well, I'm a little jaded. So where I go with this is money. All right. That peer respite is such a far more affordable option. And that, the people who are worried about money and what money goes where, it really makes a lot of sense to, and there is, some amount of research behind it, how much money is saved. When we do a voluntary survey at the end of somebody's stay, and we do these annual surveys, people report not going inpatient as often. They report, not, now that I have this safety valve place to go when things get hard or weird, I'm not ending up in these really expensive services. And sometimes insurance companies can be persuaded to actually fund things without control because they know it's going to save them money in the long run. And so hopefully states and other people who figure out where to throw money can figure out this will actually save the money.
I don't know, you guys know this better than I, but I think I saw somewhere like a day in a psychiatric hospital costs more than $1,000. And your price is like $300 or $350 a day. So that is an argument that often legislators will actually listen to.
Education is really important, and people really understanding. We're here to learn about it, and we get the value of it. But people outside of our community, do they understand what we're doing and how it works? I remember when we first opened the Respite Center in Decatur, or the stories, the community was not happy. They put up a blog about us, and said, we got these pedophiles in the neighborhood, and just all of these terrible things about having a respite in the community. And it went so far, with the whole not in my backyard thing, that it ended up in a legal battle, and we were able to win and stay in the neighborhood. And since that time, we've proven ourselves to be good neighbors, and actually have been designated the safe house in this community, where at first, they were, the boogeyman is living next door to us. And so really, I'm throwing out that word stigma, but what, and discrimination, just what people, their idea about who we are, and what we're doing. And speaking to that, and speaking out loud, and showing up for recovery and saying, hey, look at me, I'm one of those people that you would have, just discarded, and here I am, and I'm doing great things, in my life and for people in the community. And so I think that education piece and continuing to work to really change hearts and minds, and that's difficult. But if people could get it, then they'd recognize what a great investment it is, and we could have one in every community, because the communities want them. People who get it want it. People who don't get it, are like, no, not in my backyard. And so, finding ways to bridge that gap, to kind of get everybody on board, I think would make it a lot easier for Pure Respites to grow.